December 1900. Far off the western coast of Scotland, beyond the reach of bustling towns and busy shipping routes, stood the lonely lighthouse of the Flannan Isles. Surrounded by the unforgiving waters of the vast North Atlantic and perched atop towering sea cliffs, it was one of the most isolated places in Britain. For the three men responsible for keeping its light burning each night, life passed in a quiet and unchanging routine. James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur were experienced lighthouse keepers. Although their duties seemed simple, they were of tremendous importance. Every night, they kept the powerful beacon shining, guiding ships safely through one of the most dangerous stretches of coastline in the North Atlantic. They were accustomed to brutal weather, relentless winds, and weeks of complete isolation. It was a life built on discipline, patience, and absolute trust in one another. Each day followed the same familiar routine. The massive Fresnel lens was carefully cleaned and inspected. Weather observations were faithfully recorded in the lighthouse logbook. The lamps were maintained, and every piece of equipment was checked with meticulous care. Nothing about their daily lives suggested that their names would one day become part of history. But nature was slowly beginning to change. Dark storm clouds gathered over the Atlantic as the waves grew larger, crashing violently against the rocks below the lighthouse. Winter storms were nothing unusual for the keepers, but this one seemed determined to push both the island and the men who lived there to their limits. And then, without warning, everything changed. On December 26th, the supply ship Hesperus finally completed its scheduled voyage to the Flannan Isles. Delayed for several days by fierce winter storms, the crew expected nothing more than a routine supply delivery. Normally, one of the lighthouse keepers would be waiting at the landing platform to receive them. But as the island slowly emerged from the sea mist, something immediately felt wrong. No signal had been raised. No one was waiting at the landing platform. There wasn't the slightest sign of movement anywhere on the island. Captain James Harvey ordered a small party ashore to investigate. As they climbed the steep stone path toward the lighthouse, an unsettling silence seemed to settle over the island. There were no voices, no signs of daily life, only the endless sound of the wind echoing across the cliffs. When they entered the lighthouse, everything appeared strangely orderly. An unfinished meal still sat on the dining table. The beds had clearly been slept in. The lamps, furniture, and equipment were all exactly where they should have been. It was as though the three keepers had stepped outside, expecting to return at any moment. After carefully searching every room, the investigators turned their attention to the lighthouse logbook. Meanwhile, search efforts spread across the entire island. Rescue teams combed the steep cliffs, narrow footpaths, and rugged shoreline with great care. Every possible route was examined, yet no footprints, no clothing, no bodies, and no personal belongings belonging to the three men were ever found. James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur had seemingly vanished without leaving a single trace. As investigators continued searching the shoreline, they discovered a detail that immediately caught their attention. Near the western landing area, the cargo crane and the equipment used to unload supplies had been severely damaged. The sheer force of the Atlantic suggested that enormous waves had reached far higher than usual, strengthening the possibility that massive seas had swept over the cliffs during the storm. Attention soon returned to the lighthouse logbook. The final entries indicated that weather conditions had become increasingly severe before the disappearance. One entry described winds unlike anything the keepers had ever witnessed. Another noted that one of the men had become unusually quiet and deeply unsettled during the storm. Yet the official weather records from that period told a different story. According to them, no storm of such extraordinary intensity had been recorded in the area. And then, the entries simply stopped. There were no bodies, no eyewitnesses, no meaningful physical evidence left behind. Investigators were left with nothing but theories. The most widely accepted explanation suggests that one or more of the keepers went outside to secure equipment near the western landing area during the storm. At that very moment, a massive rogue wave may have surged over the cliffs, sweeping all three men into the North Atlantic before any of them had a chance to escape. It is perhaps the most reasonable explanation, but it doesn't answer every question. Why was one of the waterproof coats reportedly left inside the lighthouse? Why did 3 experienced keepers leave the station together, breaking one of the most important safety rules? And how could 3 men disappear without leaving behind a single confirmed trace? More than 120 years have passed. Countless storms have come and gone. Endless waves continue to crash against those same dark cliffs. Yet the Flannan Isles Lighthouse still stands, watching silently over the Atlantic Ocean. Its light continues to guide ships safely through the darkness. But the fate of James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur remains hidden beneath the waters of the North Atlantic, making the Flannan Isles Lighthouse Mystery one of history's most chilling and enduring unsolved mysteries.